Got to you got to hire people that got it wood in their veins. They just want to be a part of it. That gives them the want to, the passion to stick with it because it's hard. And you need a lot of those people. I think people don't realize, unless you're in that plant and in the design department, fully understand the amount of just employees you need to do that. And if you can't pull them in, then you're constrained, not by the manufacturing equipment. No, not about the equipment. It's about people.
This is the Mass Timber Group Show. I'm Nick.
And I'm Brady, and we talk to sustainable building experts. Today we caught up with Kris Spickler of the Heavy Timber Group, one of the most well-known and respected mass timber experts in North America.
Kris has over 150 mass timber projects under his belt, from Google to Microsoft to Walmart to Facebook. These mega projects only scratch the surface. If you need a coach to help bring your mass timber project to life, he's your guy.
But before we jump in, we're helping AEC professionals learn to build with mass timber so that they can change the world with their projects at the next Mass Timber Group Summit taking place in Denver. Save your seat by clicking the link in the show notes below. So with that, let's get into it.
I got in the industry. I graduated from Fresno State University. Go Bulldogs. So I was an engineer, civil engineer, took and got my license and jumped into the architecture engineering business, right? The AE firm. Did that for a few years and figured out right away, I like doing things with people instead of numbers. And a Trust Choice rep was walking through the office and said, "Hey, I'm leaving. They're going to backfill me with somebody out of LA." And I went, maybe I could do that. Well, anyways, long story short, I went to work for Trust Choice for 20 years. Nobody knows Trust Choice out there. Hey, think TJI joist, LVL, PSL, and LSL, okay? Microlam, Paralam, Timber Strand. Those were the engineered lumber products that Trust Choice pioneered, which was the first big shift in wood construction in 40 years, maybe more. So I cut my teeth on that and quickly learned how to kind of develop a small market and use those products and work with people. But I'm an engineer, right? And this was, in that day, was kind of a sales role, right? And I couldn't get it out of my mouth when somebody says, "What do you do?" "Well, I'm a salesman." No, I couldn't. I'm an engineer. I finally went to engineering sales, but small story, I went into my first sale on a job with Dan McElweeney in Fresno, California. And I put together, and as an engineer, I had estimated it to the exact piece, walked in, put it on its desk. He looked at it and said, "Well, that's too high. You're going to have to drop your price." I looked him in the eye and said, "Dan, I'm not a salesman. I'm an engineer. I made the mistake of putting exactly what it's going to be. If I'd have known, I would have jacked it up 5%. He looked at me, said, "Do you have a pen?" He signed the contract. That was my first sale. So that's kind of my history. But as time went on, Weyerhaeuser said, we need a heavy timber group to sell our big format Paralam beams. And so I did that for them for a few years, and we called it the Heavy Timber Group. And I even sent you guys a few slides of a couple of projects with these massive beams. But over time, they said, "Well, we got to get rid of small niche businesses." Well, guess what? I was the poster child for small niche businesses within Weyerhaeuser, and I found myself trying to look for a job. I decided, since everything I did for them was outsourced, most of it to Structureland, that I could start my own corporation and be their representative and just outsource it like I did with them. It worked out great, and I spent the next 20 years with Structureland, and it's been a great ride.
So your journey started all the way at the beginning of the movement that we call mass timber now, from traditional heavy timber into mass timber now, and then wrapping up with the heavy timber group being that kind of catalyst for Structurelam. What were some of the lessons you learned along the way about what makes a company successful?
Oh my gosh. Just the thought that I could have named, if I would have known, I would have named my company Mass Timber Group. Instead, I had Heavy Timber Group, but you got Mass Timber Group, which is awesome because that's what I think it needs to be. I just hung on to mine because it's historic and stay that way. But that evolution going from heavy timber to mass timber. At some point, somewhere around, I don't know, maybe it was 2008, 9, or 10, the industry decided, we got to differentiate ourselves from conventional framing, just light timber construction. And we need to help people make a shift in their minds that this is way different. Wood is not just wood. There's, light timber framing, and then there's heavy timber or mass timber framing. And the catalyst for that was cross-laminated timber, right? So, we kind of moved quickly. Structurelam at that time had the first mass CLT plant, which really put them on the map. They were already there with a lot of the glue lam that they supplied back in the day, and I've got some great projects I got to do with their just glue lam only. But the missing piece to the puzzle was you needed that floor and roof, you needed a plate, and for us on the West Coast, needed to be a diaphragm. And man, CLT was it. Now, short story was when Bill Downing, president of Structurelam, came to me, handed me this block of CLT. He says, "What do you think you can do with that?" And in my head, I was thinking, well, I don't know if I can do anything with it. I mean, I can build it quicker, faster, better, cheaper with I-joist, plywood, 2x light framing. I don't want to replace it with this, twice, 3 times as much wood. But then as we talked about it, I realized, this isn't a substitution for light frame timber. We need light frame timber. This is a substitution for concrete. And all of a sudden, it all opened up and I got on board. I was on fire. And I remember when Nick Sills, who was our kind of technical manager at the time, presented me with a T-shirt that I had to put on for everybody, and it said on it, "Captain Cross-Lam." And I went, oh gosh, there I am. I'm the captain now. But that's what I got to do. I got to go out and really find what we needed to get the industry moving, and how that would happen. And those early years, 2010 and 11 and 12, Nordic came online, so there was just 2 of us, and we tried to help each other out, because, back in those days, just getting a project with cross-laminated timber in it was a big deal. And, I did get one that was fun for me. And I don't know if you guys want to put it up on the screen, but it was a cabin, and the cabin was in Northern California, and it was an architect named Jesse Garlick, and he wanted to build a little off-the-grid cabin, and I helped him get some CLT panels through one of my best friends, John Boyce, and Nicola Lumber. He actually does all install, did a lot for Structurelam, but I put the 2 of them together, and then even Bernard was working over at Equilibrium at the time. So I had an engineer, an architect, and I had a sort of installer, and I put that team together, and guess what they did? They went out and put one of my very first CLT projects together on a weekend, a 3-day weekend. John came out with what he called a dump truck with everything on it with a lift, and showed up, and there was Jesse and Bernard and their wives. And all 5 of them came out and put that thing together in a weekend. And that's the one with a picture where all five of them are there. For me, that kind of summed up, the win-win, and how putting people together and trying to make projects happen is what's successful. And that was the catalyst for me when that happened, to move on to all of the other great projects I could be involved with.
Well, and I don't think most people know. Maybe they do, but I know I didn't until we kind of got to know you a little bit. Some of the great projects that you've been a part of. I mean, it's, whether it be Walmart to Google to, working with Facebook. I mean, what are some of the if you could like rattle off some of the projects just so people can understand like the length of the experience that you have, and then also like the order of magnitude of the size and scale of these projects.
Oh, yeah. Well, the smallest was Jesse Garlick's project. And I got to be involved in projects all over the U.S. And as the Heavy Timber Group, my corporation grew with salespeople, whether it was Erica Spiritos, Elisa Shuckian, Corey Scribner. We started to pick territories and put projects all over. But in the early days, I probably had by myself just 60 projects going, ranging anywhere from 25 panels over at Jesse's cabin to Microsoft with 2,500 panels going into their Mountain View campus. And if you haven't seen that, I put a couple of slides in there showing that campus. And, we can go through those at the end if you want, but that had 400,000 square feet of CLT panels. And when we took that job on, everybody thought, since it's still new, everybody's thinking, we'll have probably 200 of this panel, 500 of this. No, there was a few panels that were repeat, but there was probably, out of the 2,500 panels, there was probably 2,400 that were all one-offs. Everyone was different. And when you think about that and lifting it in place and putting it down, that was a great project, very complicated. But we had Rudolph and Slutton as a great contractor that stuck with it. And Bob Razorski was their key guy. And sometimes on a project, you got to have somebody that won't say no, will just say, I'll work on it. I'll get it. I'll find a way. I'll do it. I could spend a whole podcast talking about the do's and don'ts and what Bob came up with that made it successful. And we are still best friends today. I still see him. Why? We did something together that everybody thought, when they finally looked at the whole solution, they thought couldn't be done. And Xander and Eric over oh gosh, come on, Kris. I'll think of their name in a minute. The engineers on the project, they were great. They could step up and modify things, and really worked out to be a great project. And then moving in, as time goes on, projects got bigger and bigger and bigger. One of my favorite projects, though, that I would ask everybody to go take a look at was when I got to go spend some time in New Canaan, Connecticut at Grace Farms, and got to do their first really community building there. And it was with the Arctic Fan and a couple engineers out of New York and Siami Construction. And gosh, that's the river building. It actually comes down the hill and flows like a river. And each of the rooms were done individually and served a separate purpose, whether it was a gymnasium, an event hall, a library. But as you look at that building, you just realize that took 3D modeling, took CNC framing. It took every bit of what the top of the industry had for technology could put out to do it. And that was back 2008? No, sorry. Might have been 2007. Anyways, I think from there, moving up, bigger is better, right? Just the fact that Structuralland put together an 18-story at the University of British Columbia, that kind of popped the cork for opening up North America to code acceptance. So Um, and then to get projects, say for the tech companies in Silicon Valley, like Microsoft, Google, and Facebook, those companies decided that this was what we need to do for the future, just from a sustainability, carbon sequestering, better for the environment. But when you walk through those buildings, oh my gosh, they're like cathedrals. So that feeling, you just know that was the right decision for them. Okay, I'm off on a tangent again.
No, those are great tangents. And I think that those big projects that really command a spotlight are what inspire and gain awareness for other buildings to come out in mass timber products. One of the things that I've noticed in the stories that you're telling is there's a theme, and that theme is people over products. And we talked a little bit about this before we hit record, but can you tell us a little bit how that philosophy has kind of guided you over your career?
Yeah, I can. I quickly there was. I'm trying to think of who posted. It might have been Arnie. There was a picture of all this brand new mass timber equipment. The PVA for cutting the panels, the press, all this stuff, and everybody's looking at it going, "Oh, that's what you need." And the comment was, "Before you get this, you need this." And the picture underneath it was just a tech team, just a bunch of people sitting at their desks talking, putting the things together in the computer and doing that. If you can't, uh, if you can't put it together and get it into a model, you can't get it out to the robots. That's the easy part. The robots, that's the easy part. Manufacturing, it's like, whew, we're there. Now just manufacture it. That's the easy part. The hard part, we used to call it the DFMA for us, but part of what we had to do is we had to help with the engineering as well and say, here's what we can build. And then maybe we get somebody like Dave Beck's team over at Excel Construction and their install group, Elevate, to sit in on all the meetings to say, well, here's what we can assemble. Here's what we can build. You can make that. We can build that. Now we just got to convince the engineer and architect to design it that way, right? It's almost like you got to go backwards to go forward. That's the hard work. And guess what? That's all people. That's all people. And that's people hitting their head against the wall a dozen times and saying, I can't believe it. We've got to solve this. And then they solve it and they find a simpler way and they can try to make it more repetitive. But you have to go through that process. And to get there, you got to hire people that, as I say, they've got it, the wood in their veins. They just want to be a part of it. That gives them the want to, the passion to stick with it because it's hard. And you need a lot of those people. Some of these projects had a dozen 3D modelers modeling for 4 months. That's a lot of want to, and learning enough to be able to do that and come back and forth and have twice weekly meetings to check the box. Can we design it? Can we make it? Can we assemble it? And I think people don't realize, unless you're in that plant and in the design department, fully understand the amount of just employees you need to do that. And if you can't pull them in, then you're constrained, not by the manufacturing equipment, but by the input that you need a quality team to unite and pull that together. And I guess to stay on the tangent of that, you don't just go hire those people and they do it. You've got to have the culture. You've got to have the culture. It's got to start at the top, and you've got to have someone that is willing to inspire, encourage, and coach. Step back and let somebody take it over the finish line and get people and work with people. So it's about people, not things. And so many CEOs come into businesses and think, I'm going to get that manufacturing equipment up and running faster and we'll make money. No, it's not about the equipment. It's about the people.
So I imagine a lot of the conversation that we had in our last podcast with Max Closen of MTC Solutions came out of your guys' relationship, because he talked so much about people over product like you did. And it's the people that make the world go round. One of the things that he talked about, and I'm curious to get your insight on, is how do we bring these talented AEC professionals and leaders from the general construction industry into the mass timber world so that this cycle continues? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh gosh, I'd say the best example for that, because would be my friend Dave Beck over at Excel Construction. As you can imagine, over the years, I've worked with a lot of contractors, and I have a lot of best friends, contractors. And, the construction industry in general makes money off of doing what they have already done 100 times. Well, that's not mass timber. They're, trying to break through in this business was one, understanding and putting together manufacturing, and two, getting out to the industry and saying, okay, I got to get an engineer that can engineer it. I got to get an architect that wants to use it and commits as the owner, and the owner sees the benefit. And then I got to find somebody that actually will build it. Now I got to find an installer. And so you educate all these people and pull it through to where it can finally come out the other end. And, that's a lot of work. But when you've got somebody that's made that shift in their brain, that, wait a minute, our business will be successful by doing new things and doing new things right. And this is going to be a lot of hard work, but I got to hire the people to do that. I watched Excel Construction do that over the years, and bring those people in, and build that culture of empowering those people to want to do it, because they could see the end run and what it was going to be. And once they got that first small mass timber project underway and built, trying to think of the name, but it's in the Bay Area. They had the Sonoma Academy was their first one. They had a couple of smaller ones, but once their team started to, they caught the bug. They wanted everybody wanted to be part of the mass timber department, right? And then he could grow that, and he could coach them and help them, and was very supportive. That was a pleasure to work with that team versus somebody just won the bid. They've never done mass timber, and now they're going to come after the manufacturer and beat them over the head until they solve every one of their problems that they don't want to take ownership of. Over the years in the historically, a general contractor will put it all on his subs and doesn't really take any responsibility. He's just coaching subs, right? He's just paying them, getting them on site, and say, well, no, you agreed to do that, so now you got to fix it. That's not how you build a mass timber building. I think you guys know this. It isn't a bid process that makes it successful. It's an actual design build process that makes it successful. And once you understand that, you can build in the economies and build a better building and build it on time. I mean, that's the dream in our industry, is on budget, on time. I don't know that it's ever been done, but it's getting there, and it will get there through pre-manufacturing and going through that process we've been talking about, through people figuring out what could go wrong and fixing it in the design, in the model, and sending it out to the shop. And that's how it'll work. And I see that successful mass timber contractors understand that, get involved, and put their team together. Whether it's even the electrician or the plumber or somebody that has to know that this is mass timber. So if I'm on top of my game, I can send them a 3D model of where we want the holes. Now, you don't always want to do all the holes, but the major ones that make sense, you could start to get every player, bring them, get a seat at the table, and work together to put together that unique building in a way that gives the owner exactly what they needed, on time and on budget. That's the dream. We will do that.
And for right now, the industry, and, you've kind of flirted with this on LinkedIn a little bit. You have 1 foot in retirement, maybe 1 foot out of retirement a little bit. And so for the person like listening in, I mean, you're considered a consultant, a coach. But would it be specifically for like like major companies in the sense, like, you were the heavy timber group for Structure Lamb for going on 20 years. You did business development, you did sales. But would a developer or an investor come to you and say, hey, I got this incredible project, this large scale project, and I need to get it to the finish line? Are you coaching them from the beginning to the end, or are you playing the other side of the fence where it's like, you know, you put in the, it's like whatever, Structure Lamb or Smart Lamb or Mercer or Nordic or you name them. I'm just rattling off names, but are those the people that are coming to you that say, hey, how do we get to the next level in our business for scaling up production or, XYZ?
Yeah, everybody's still got my phone number, so they still call me, and I take everybody's call because I've built a lot of friendships in the industry, and truly, my reward in all these years, we look at, oh gosh, I was the one that got the ICC report for structural lamb for in-plane shear and design for CLT that allowed us in 2012 through 14 to put products in California. That's engineering, and I just bought a tool for design. Those are all great things, but really, it's the relationship and working with people and coaching and helping them that really is where my successes, I feel, come from, and I enjoy that, and I still want to continue that, and so I still get calls, and I've just told everybody I'm available to help. If it's on a long-term basis, um, I probably would not want to put out a contract and put in a lot of time, but I like connecting people. So I had an architect down from Southern California call me just asking the same thing, Nick, and I said, good. I said, I'm happy to meet with you. When you get up Northern California with your project, I'll meet with you and I'll tell you who I think are your best partners that would fit your team for this project, that have that experience, and pull it together and then take it from there. I mean, I enjoy doing that. I feel rewarded from that. My greatest successes are seeing people inspired and doing great mass timber projects.
So with all of the stuff that you're involved with, the people you're talking to, the teams you're connecting, are you seeing anything that's emerging in the mass timber market, in the industry, that people need to be paying attention to, or maybe they need to put some more effort into?
Oh, as far as just in general, um, yeah, I mean, I think we're still short on the technical people it takes to be able to launch this industry to the next level and really push it. I think we have a lot of the capacities now, especially that plant down in Arkansas that Mercer has purchased and it has got back up and running, and they're going to be using that plant, I think, to go back and start to finish up some of those Walmart buildings in Bentonville. That project stalled a bit, and that hurt Structure Lamb when that happened. And I think along with COVID, that when we did come back to business after COVID, I had some huge projects that we'd committed to. We could not get people back into the building. So there we were, we got um, one shift working 8 hours. And then we got to a shift and a half the next year. But we had to run 3 shifts to be profitable, and we couldn't get there. All those things were a bit circumstantial that hurt, and that took Structural Land down a path that, they needed help, and they got it by pulling in somebody like Mercer, which committed to buy all of it. And of course, it went through a stalking horse process to do that, and they did, and they bought it, and they've got it, and they'll get it back up and running. And I think we'll be able to finally see that those plants produce at the capacity that will fill North America with product. And of course, you've got all these other great manufacturers out there now, like even Russ. He's putting on new capacity. He's stuck his toe in the water, his foot in the water. Now he's jumping all in with some new equipment, and I think that's awesome. And I think that we've got a dozen of those all over North America. There's going to be plenty of capacity as far as manufacturing. There's not plenty of capacity when it comes to technical ability to come in and say you've got the experience to run that, put that project through without a hiccup. That still needs, we as an industry, that's the number one thing that has to happen. That training ground where you're growing up young people to come in right out of college and they want to be part of this and they're willing to commit, 4 years to getting the education through hands-on working within, whether it's a manufacturing plant, a design team, an engineer, or architect, to get that and build that legacy. We brought a lot of people over from Europe in the early days because we just didn't have it here. So I think that still needs to happen. And there's probably multiple solutions to try to get that done. But I would say that has to happen.
So there's a lot of different types of people that are listening to this. There's those people that are coming right out of college, they're exploring career opportunities, but then you've also got people like yourself who are well experienced, they're mentors, they're coaches, they've been in the industry, they know it inside and out. How do you think that those two different types of groups come together so that we do get more of those technical people into the mass timber world?
Oh gosh, the only example I could give you, I think, which is a great one, is you guys interviewed Hardy Wenzel, and Hardy back in the day went to State College, and a couple of old buddies there that he had, and said, "Hey, give me your brightest and your best that I can bring him in." And I can remember him bringing in a number of people, Monty, Brody. There was all kinds of young people he brought in. And at that time, we had the culture of a family to invite them and work with them and let them absorb and cross-train throughout the business. Those people have stayed in mass timber and have gone off. That was just a small example, but that could have been done at every college, and go in and recruit and bring people in, because those are the leaders that are going to take us to the next level.
Yeah, you mentioned Russ. Russ really rolled out the red carpet for me and Brady too, and nobody really should have. It just kind of gave it. Russ Vaughan with Vaughan Timbers, giving us the time, and so we're really rooting for the if anybody out there, they want some beautiful CLT and glue lambs. Vaughan Timbers is an incredible company and scaling up quick. You talked about technical people. What are examples of those technical people that you feel like there's a little bit of a bottleneck and we need more of XYZ?
Oh, I mean, to have a completely trained 3D CAD modeler. I mean, you see them in steel all the time, because steel's been 3D modeling forever, and they're working in Tekla. But you got to get somebody who's going to work in CAD work. And you can transfer them over, and you can get them, 95 to 98% of the way, rebuilt. But I think we just need more people trained in that 3D modeling. I have met some of the best 3D modelers in the industry that can come really put out the work and put it out. And it isn't just about drawing it and 3D modeling it. It's about understanding the wood, the robots and how they're going to frame it, and then 3D modeling it in a way that it can be manufactured and built. So that's a wide range. But just to be able to get somebody out of college that is, an industry or construction tech or architectural engineering that has, even if it's a 2-year degree or 4-year degree, and pull them in and then let them cross-train in those positions, within a couple of years, you'll have a fully effective, person that can actually produce what we need. That has to happen. And, not every manufacturer is tied into a college or tied into people to bring them in, or could reach out to the industry and say, I know Tekla, I want to train you in CAD work. I just don't know that there's the extra room or time. Maybe I see Russ as being a person that would do that.
Well, it's interesting, actually. I didn't really think about that. I thought it would be more architects, more engineers, more builders, more GCs that have the real world experience. And I do think we need that, but that it kind of, rattled my brain a little bit. It's like, yeah, that totally makes sense. The CAD, the technical degrees, the computer, engineers that need to be first and foremost to get this stuff into a reality.
Right. You need the senior person to be able to pick them out, help them, put them in the right spot to do that. In our office, it was Nick Sills, and Nick knew so much about all the equipment, all the product, how it goes together. He actually could get them the real world experience they needed within the facility. But getting them out of college ready to go and excited about going to work, and then getting pumped about mass timber, that's what lights the fire. And then you just follow that.
And then in what you're meaning then is also, it's like you get these blanks, these billets of CLT that get shipped to a pre-construction manager like a Timber Lab or something, and then the CNC machine turns that on that 360-degree axis, and then it cuts everything that out that it needs to be. And it's like, we need people like that can be in charge of those CNC machines.
Well, yes, you absolutely do. And I think that takes less training than actually modeling and troubleshooting it, because now you're just producing it. And I think that, for the most part, I think we're going to see a change in the industry where we're going to see more people manufacturing and then subletting to consolidators that, like Timber Labs, one of the first ones to go in and get a K2 CNC machine for glulam. I think the next step is getting a PBA for CLT. And then you'll get some of the manufacturers that really never developed the front end of designing and 3D modeling and getting it right. They can actually produce commodity billets and send it to secondary, two-step kind of marketplace that wants to go ahead and do all that work. For Timber Lab, I think coming in with being able to CNC frame their own glulam was a must, because most of the glulam manufacturers are old school. Tell us how many trucks of what size. Okay, there are some that have picked up some smaller K2s and they CNC frame. Sorry, there are some that do that, but out of 25, there's only 4. So I think, but the next step is a big step where you get into a big PVA and start framing panels. That's a lot more money. That's, 5 million, instead of $1 million. So we'll see when that jump happens. I think it will someday. Does it make sense to do it right now? I guess it depends on the model you're building and the amount of business you got flowing through your company. You probably need 30 to 40 million in sales to be able to buy that and be able to make it work.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see people catch on to that demand and that need. I know, like, Cornerstone Timber Frames out of Canada, traditional heavy frame timber background is very much so like looking at the mass timber market and saying, oh, we don't necessarily need a whole bunch more commodity billet capacity, but they need somebody to work, fabricate, install, and get on those. So I think you'll see some more of those coming up. And you're right, like there's 100 different glulam manufacturers that have been in business for decades in the United States. But it's like, how do we take that traditional infrastructure and then morph it to be able to be put into the mass timber world?
Yeah, install is a big deal, and having a good installer can solve a lot of problems. And I remember early, like I said, on that Jesse Garlic place with John Boyce, he was one of the first installers for CLT, and he learned a lot. And having somebody like that on a site can save you time and money. And so that educating and that end of it too is so important for those teams.
So after going through all of the, from the beginning to the end, from, the birth of mass timber to where we are now, I shouldn't call it the end. I would say it's the beginning of the new beginning. Where are you focused? Where are you going to spend your time? What's next for Kris?
Oh yeah. I was laughing to myself because I thought about that, in talking to you guys. Well, where am I headed? What am I going to do? I like encouraging, coaching people, and I'll still do that with the industry when asked. But as far as taking on a full-time job, I have a hankering to do something very different. Early on in my career, I decided to take, how in your signature in the bottom of your email, you'll put, whether you're an accountant or this or that. I always had professional engineer, PE, right? And then I took that off one day because I realized, I'm more than an engineer. I'm not just a salesperson. I'm kind of a consultant all around. And I didn't know what to put there, but everybody's got these little acronyms behind their name, right? Some people got 4 or 5 of them. So what did I put? I put PSIA L3. And I had it there for about 10 years before somebody asked me, and I think it was Sasha at the plant, what does PSIA L3 stand for? I said, oh, Professional Ski Instructors of America Level 3. I used to be a ski instructor for 20 years, and my old ski area is asking me to come back and teach again. I love encouraging people, coaching them, and helping them. And who knows, maybe that's in the cards for me. I may do that, but right now I'm waiting for the snow.
Yeah, no, that's funny. I as you were saying TSIL3, I'm like racking my brain. I'm like, this is escaping me. I've seen so many acronyms. I'm like, I don't know what he's going to say. But ski instructor is not something that you're going to see very often going around the mass timber world. That's funny.
Well, a lot of the Canadians all ski, and I can tell you, from Robert Malchek to Eric Karsh to all those engineers up there I used to spend time with, they all ski. Matter of fact, Robert Malchek was a ski instructor. We used to laugh about that together.
That's funny. So, like, speaking of all these like certifications and things that people are learning inside and outside of the mass timber world, with your extensive background and knowledge, like, where do you go to find new information? Like, where are you learning from now?
I still have a lot of people I look to in the industry. I've named some of their names, and I kind of stay and hang with them to kind of see what they're doing next, and where are they learning it from. And some of those names are for engineers, the Robert Malcheks, the Eric Karsh, all engineers named Eric. So you've got Eric McDonald. Oh gosh, there's another Eric out there. I've got a bunch of engineers that are Erics. Greg Kingsley. I try to hang with those guys and stay in that engineering part of the world. But when it comes to construction and those things and install, I've got some mentors and people I worked with, whether it's a Dave Beck or it's Mike Marshall with Kinsall or the Elevate Group. I stay in touch with all those people and look for where they're headed and what they're doing, and pick up on that and see if there's any way I can be an assistant.
No, yeah, that's it's funny that you said all engineers are named Eric. I have an uncle that is named Eric, that he is an electrical engineer. So that rang very true for me.
The engineer I forgot was Eric Neer. That's right. Yeah. Holmes Engineering. They're the ones that did the Microsoft project and were so kind and understanding when they found out that they had designed it to almost 50% CD for the contractor, brought on the manufacturer, me, and we had to sit in meetings and redesign a bunch of the steel and the connections and everything. And it pulled poor Xander just out of his comfort zone. But he trusted me. I trusted him. We stayed with it, and we redesigned it and cut a lot of time and money out of it. But that's the big thing is don't go to CD somewhere along the line. Bring somebody to the table. You can even bring them in when you just get started. But if you got to bring them in before DD, you're already a little late. So design development, construction drawings.
That's cool that you said Greg Kingsley with KL&A Engineers and Builders. That name rings true to the world of mass timber, and he was actually one of our biggest supporters in the very beginning. We do an annual networking and education event in Denver, and he was the very first person that he had no reason to ever stick his neck out and trust us. We were nobody from anybody. And he's like, you know what, let's do something. And he was our very first keynote speaker. Quick side note, our next Mass Timber Group Summit is in August in Denver, coming up next year. And he's also another keynote speaker. So I don't know, if we can twist your arm if you need a little vacation to get out to Denver, but Greg will be there.
Well, I'd love to see Greg again. I had so much fun working on projects with him and being involved with him. And I can tell you, he is a very inventive, creative engineer and doesn't shy away from things. always willing to try new things. And he's a great speaker. He's just fun to listen to. And yeah, the museum there in Aspen that he did was pretty phenomenal. So yeah, that's great. Good for him.
Yeah, they have a ton of projects up their sleeve. I mean, in construction, under construction, and they've been one of the largest, players for quite a while. I mean, before it was ever a fad, and I don't think this fad is going anywhere. But as this industry gets more into that hockey stick curve of adoption of what we're in right now, but it sounded like that you kind of rattled off some people in the industry that you looked up to, or is there any other inspiration, that, people that kind of got to you to where you are?
Yeah, you know what? There was a engineer at my first job, Martin Pohl, that was an engineer's engineer, and his attention to detail and how he put things together really inspired me when I was younger. And when he retired, I hired him to help me with my engineering. And I would put engineering together for design build projects where we provided engineering. And people would look at it and they said, gosh, this looks like a college textbook on engineering. We could use this to actually engineer. He was so perfect at things. And I really realized how you had to be tight on what you did and you had to write it down. You had to document it. And he helped me with so many tools that I use for design. And so, yeah, he was kind of the guys that kicked me out of the nest and got me going.
And that was Martin Pohl, like
Martin
Pull.
Pohl, he's retired now.
Pole
Yeah,
or
Pholl.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to look him up. I'm not sure if he has any sort of information online to kind of learn from.
I don't think so. I think he just took care of me.
That's not a bad thing. Well, now you get to take care of other people. So
Yeah, yeah.
there's many layers to this. Well, before we ask our last question, where can people get a hold of you and connect with you?
I'm still the same phone number, so they can call me as they have for the last 20 years at the same phone number. But they can go to my website, which I just put up in July quickly because I wanted to have some uh, appearance of being in business. But I'm at heavytimbergroup.com. So Kris, Kris, at heavytimbergroup.com. That's my email address. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And you can find all my information online.
Perfect. Well, our last question will bring it to the close. If you had a magic wand and you could change anything in the industry, what would it be and why?
Oh, yeah. The magic wand. We started with it's people, not things. There's going to be plenty of good equipment out there, but it takes people to create that equipment. It takes people to run that equipment. It takes people to design and put in the input into that. So if I had a magic wand, I would help at least not as much the Canadian market, but in the U.S. market. We still have contractors and industry people in construction that have done the same thing for 40 years, and they can make money at it, so they're not willing to change and go to something new. To go to something new means they have to bring somebody in-house that's got some of all those technical traits, and it may be a dozen people to be able to jump into this business. The thing they have to be able to do is realize that those people will have to work hard and be problem solvers. And it can be stressful at times with deadlines. When you have that going on, you really need to create a culture of teamwork, family, doing it together, appreciation, encourage, and reward. You have to do all the key things that a servant leader would do. And the more you can develop a culture of want to, you'll be successful. And people will go back and hit it hard a dozen times to find the solution. But when you get stressed and you don't have enough people and you just start demanding people you have to, that's the beginning of the end. And so you want to stay out of it. And if I had a wand, yeah, I would I would put key people in place at those organizations that want to get into this business and top down have that culture of want to help the person get there.
Well, you're a true pleasure, Kris. And next time we're in California around the China Peak Resort, maybe we'll have to buy
Private
you a beer.
lesson.
Yeah, we'll have to buy you a beer. Maybe slip you 100 and get some ski lessons. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. Thanks for having me, you guys. It's been fun talking and getting to know you, and I look forward to spending time together again.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks, Kris.